Welcome to the Hindu Daily. Today we're diving into some really significant topics coming out of India. We'll be looking at how fundamental rights, like the right to information, are potentially shifting.
And also how social justice issues, specifically property rights for tribal women, are being debated in the courts.
Exactly. And then we'll shift to a very urgent situation on the ground, the aftermath of the devastating floods in Punjab. So 3 quite different but equally important stories. Let's start with this first one, which is about India's Right to Information Act, the RTI. The article suggests recent changes might be turning it almost on its head, from a right to information, perhaps, to a right to deny it.
It's a worrying idea. The core principle, of course, in a democracy is that government information fundamentally belongs to the citizens. The government's just the custodian, right?
Right. Holding it in trust for the people.
And Section 8.1 Ardeshe of the original RTI Act was key to this. It was quite detailed, trying to balance that right to know with individual privacy. And it had this really clever mechanism, the acid test. Basically, if information couldn't be kept secret from Parliament or a state legislature.
Then it couldn't be kept from an ordinary citizen either.
Precisely. So, say, details about spending on a government project, if lawmakers could demand it, so could you. It gave public information officers, the PIOs, a clear benchmark.
So what's changed? This new Digital Personal Data Protection Act, the DPDP Act, comes into play here.
It does, significantly. It amends that very Section 8, 1J, cutting it down from all that detail to just 6 words.
6 words.
Yeah. And the argument is that this drastic shortening makes it much, much easier to refuse information. The clarity is gone. And a big part of the problem is the term personal information itself.
How so? Is the definition unclear?
Very. The article points out 2 conflicting interpretations floating around. One is narrow personal information relates to a natural person, an individual human being.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
But the other view, coming from the DPDP bill itself, is incredibly broad. It includes things like a Hindu undivided family, that's a specific legal entity for family businesses in India, a firm, a company, even the state itself.
Wait, the state? So government information could be called personal information of the state?
Potentially, yes. If that broad definition takes hold, then, as the article puts it, almost everything is personal information. And that gives officials a huge lever to deny requests. Some are even calling it an RDI, a right to deny information.
And there's more pressure on the officials, too, isn't there? Something about penalties.
Oh, absolutely. This is crucial. The DPDP bill apparently overrides other laws if there's a conflict, and it brings in hefty penalties for violations up to 250 crore. That's 2.5 billion rupees.
250 crore, that's astronomical.
It is. So put yourself in the shoes of a PIO. Much government data is digital now. Faced with this vague definition of personal information and the threat of such massive fines.
You're going to play it safe. You're going to deny the request rather than risk personal ruin.
Exactly. It creates a chilling effect on disclosure. The path of least resistance becomes denial.
And the bigger consequences for fighting corruption, for just basic accountability.
They look pretty dire, according to the article. It highlights 3 main things. First, the loss of public monitoring. Citizens are often the best check against corruption, If they can't get information, that check is weakened, especially if official anti-corruption bodies aren't always effective.
Right.
Second, the denial of even basic, essential information. Because the definition is so broad, maybe even getting your own corrected mark sheet or a simple official order could be blocked. That example from Rajasthan sharing pension lists to find ghost employees, that kind of transparency might become impossible.
Which directly enables potential fraud.
Precisely. And third, it could lead to unfettered corruption. The article bluntly says the amendment makes it the easy thing to be corrupt. Hiding information related to charges becomes simpler, allowing corruption to, flourish unhindered.
What's strange, the article notes, is the relative lack of public or media noise about this compared to earlier RTI changes. Why do you think that is?
Well, the suggestion is that because it's framed under the guise of data protection, people might think it's about protecting their privacy, not about reducing government transparency. It sounds less threatening.
A misdirection almost.
Could be. And maybe there's also a bit of my information shouldn't be shared, thinking that sort of ego takes over idea, which distracts from the government accountability angle.
So the overall assessment is quite serious.
Extremely. The article calls it a very fundamental regression on our democracy, a fundamental attack on our fundamental rights. It's not just procedural tinkering. The call is for action, public debate, pushing political parties to commit to fixing this, building public opinion with media help. It's about recognizing how serious this is for transparency.
A lot to think about there. Okay, let's shift gears. From legal transparency to another fundamental right, equality, specifically in the context of tribal women and property. Our second piece looks at this gap in gender parity.
Yes, and it centers around a Supreme Court judgment from July 17th, 2025, Ram Charan and Ors versus Sukram and Ors.
What was significant about that case?
The Supreme Court bench made a really strong statement. They essentially said that excluding daughters from inheriting ancestral property directly violates their fundamental right to equality under the Constitution.
Okay, and the specifics. Who was involved?
It involved the heirs of a scheduled tribe woman named Daya from Chhattisgarh. They were trying to claim a share in their maternal grandfather's property, but the lower courts initially said no.
Why not?
Because, they argued, the custom within their specific tribe, the Gond tribe, didn't allow for daughters to inherit like that. It's a classic customary practice versus fundamental rights.
So how did it resolve? Did the High Court agree with the lower courts?
No, the Chhattisgarh High Court sided with Daya's heirs. They granted them an equal share. And crucially, they stated that hiding behind custom to deny women property rights just entrenches gender discrimination. The law, they said, should actively root out such discrimination.
That's a powerful stance against discriminatory customs.
It is, and it highlights a broader issue. The article points out that most tribal women in India, barring some exceptions, like in the matrilineal societies of the Northeast, actually lack statutory rights in ancestral property.
So the laws often don't cover them.
Effectively, yes. Customary laws often fill that gap, and those customs frequently exclude women from inheritance. The data bears this out. The 2015-16 agriculture census showed only about 16.7% of ST women own land, compared to 83.3% of ST men. It's a huge disparity.
Are there common arguments used to justify this exclusion?
Yes, the article mentions a couple. One is the idea that land in tribal communities is sometimes seen as communitarian, not individually owned in the same way. Another is the fear of land alienation, the worry that if a tribal woman marries a non-tribal man, the land might pass out of the community's control.
I see. Concerns about community cohesion and resources.
Right, though the article counters that sometimes these fears don't fully consider that the land remains indigenous regardless of who within the family or community it passes to.
And legally, can any custom just override fundamental rights? Are there tests?
There are. For a custom to be legally upheld, especially if it seems discriminatory, it has to meet strict criteria. It needs to demonstrate antiquity, certainty, continuity, reasonableness, and importantly, it must conform with public policy.
So it can't just be, we've always done it this way.
No. There was another case mentioned, Prabha Mins in 2022. The Jharkhand High Court ruled for Oran women's property rights because the other side couldn't prove a custom of denial that met those legal tests. The burden of proof is high.
And the Supreme Court's Kamalanetti judgment in late 2022 also moved things towards parity.
Yes, cited as another step in that direction. So the article flirts a potential long-term solution, since Section 2 of the main Hindu Succession Act excludes tribal women.
Maybe they need their own law.
Exactly. Either a dedicated Tribal Succession Act or perhaps a formal codification of tribal customary laws, much like Hindu and Christian personal laws are codified. That could bring much-needed clarity and hopefully equality.
Fascinating. Okay, from legal battles to a battle against nature and its aftermath. Our third deep dive takes us to Punjab, dealing with the recent devastating floods.
Yes, this is a ground report focusing on the human impact. And it's stark. 55 lives lost, thousands displaced, and just immense anxiety about lost crops, lost homes, lost jobs.
The story of Kiran Irani from Donisakandri village really hits home, doesn't it? Water rushing in, destroying everything, submerging their fields.
Absolutely. Her family climbing onto tables, stuck in knee-deep water for days. It paints a brutal picture of the immediate terror and loss.
And the scale is just enormous. Across Punjab, the grain bowl of India.
Around 4 lakh people affected. That's 400,000. In something like 2,200 villages across 18 districts. It brings back memories of the huge 1988 floods, suggesting this level of devastation isn't unprecedented, sadly.
The article highlights how the most vulnerable are suffering suffering most. Daily wage earners like Sham Singh with no work.
Or farm laborers like Balwant Singh, who worry they won't even qualify for relief because they don't formally own the land they work. It shows how disasters exacerbate existing inequalities.
And the rainfall was just off the charts, wasn't it?
Completely. The IMD figures show Punjab got 253.7 millimeters of rain in August. That's 74% above normal, just a massive amount of water.
And even when the water goes down, the problems don't just disappear. There are huge logistical hurdles.
Right. People like Sukhvinder Singh having to row boats themselves, often without training or safety gear like jackets. Shortages of essentials like cooking gas, forcing families to share, and a desperate need for cattle fodder and medicine for livestock that were also caught up in it.
It's a crisis layered on top of a crisis.
It really is. And the long-term economic hit is what many are dreading now. You have Mukhtiar Singh, the school cab driver, worried about feeding his family of 8 with savings gone and no work for his sons who are daily wagers.
That quote from the village Sarpanch, Balwant Singh of Jungarabayani, is chilling. The miseries have in fact just begun.
It speaks volumes. He describes widespread damage to homes in his village, lost crops, animal carcasses now surfacing, and this rising fear of disease outbreaks. The immediate flood is over, but the struggle for recovery is long and hard.
Especially for farmers. The agricultural impact sounds catastrophic.
Devastating. Take Kurinder Pal Singh in Gurdaspur. Lost his whole paddy crop on 70 acres leased land, mind you, sitting under feet of water for days.
And now he's worried about the next crop.
Yes, the winter wheat. The land will likely be too saturated for timely planting. That means late sowing, which usually means lower yields. It's a knock-on effect that impacts food security and farmer incomes for months, maybe longer.
The government figures mention crop damage on nearly 2 lakh hectares statewide.
1.91 lakh hectares, yes, that's a huge area. And farmers like Devinderjeet Singh in Amritsar face similar problems, delayed basmati harvest, but also increased costs. Using special machines on the wet ground cost him €6,000 per acre, triple the normal cost.
So costs up, yields potentially down, a terrible combination.
Absolutely. Which brings us to the political response and the controversy surrounding aid.
Right. The Prime Minister announced a financial package, 1,600 crore. How was that received?
Not well by the state government or opposition parties. The ruling AAP called it meager and insufficient. They estimate the losses are over 20,000 crore.
A massive gap between the aid announced and the estimated damage.
A huge gap. And the Punjab Congress and the Shiromani Akali Dal, the SAD, agreed, calling the central relief miserably meager.
And this led to a political fight over existing funds.
Yes, specifically the State Disaster Management Fund, the SDRF. There was apparently around 12,000 crore available there. The SAD started asking the AAP government where that money was.
And the BJP accused them of misusing it.
The state BJP president, Sunil Jakhar, accused the AAP of squandering away SDRF money on publicity stunts, essentially. So it descended into a blame game.
Not exactly what you want to see during a major crisis.
Definitely not. The AAP government, through Cabinet Minister Harpal Singh Chima, hit back, accusing the BJP of shamelessly peddling lies and insisting all SDRF spending is transparent and public.
So political finger-pointing instead of maybe a unified focus on relief?
It seems that way, unfortunately. And the article makes a final important point. Punjab keeps getting hit by floods. It lists major events in 2023, 2019, 2013, 2010, 2008, 2004.
Suggesting this is a recurring systemic problem, not just a one-off disaster.
Exactly. It points to a deeper challenge beyond just immediate aid, needing serious thought about long-term flood management, infrastructure, and maybe even land use planning.
So after exploring such critical issues today, from the potential erosion of the right to information to the fight for gender equality and property rights for tribal women and the devastating aftermath of Punjab's floods alongside the political responses, it really leaves you wondering.
You know, how effectively our democratic institutions and our social structures are truly equipped to protect citizens' rights and respond to their most basic needs, especially when you see these dual pressures, legal changes potentially undermining transparency, and environmental crises demanding swift, united action. What stands out to you about how these different challenges sort of intersect and really demand our attention?
Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.